So people, you see that my last video was about musical understanding and musical appreciation, and of course it has a lot to do with comprehensibility also. It's quite the same here in this context. And another video a long time ago before this one, was on how much music theory do you need as a composer, okay, or to become a composer. And I have now something to say that relate to these two topics in some way. And the point is that people focus too much on some music theoretical concepts in themselves, principally some rules that were, yes, the majority of rules that were applied between Bach and Wagner, and the majority of patterns and musical ideas that were used in this time. I think they focused too much on this. Maybe because they don't understand this basic concept, and I didn't understand, I think, that most of the rules and musical patterns that are teachable and that constitutes what we really call the classical music, and principally what people also call the common practice period. I mean, this music between Bach and Wagner, most of the time they are just means to reach some comprehensibility. And if you care about that, you will have some interesting insights that it's not so much about the, for example, sonata form or perfect consonant chords or common this very overused way to understand non-chord tones, etc. It's not that they are beautiful in themselves. It's more about that they were the condition of comprehensibility in that musical style or period. And that's what I say also applies for the relation between rules, music theoretical rules, and musical comprehensibility in other styles, okay? But I think that's more important in the field of the classical music, because even if you are the most conservative composer, and I don't think that a composer should search to be radical just to be radical, or innovative just for the sake of originality. But classical music is very associated with musical development, because you should consider this philosophical background of the classical music. You should consider that the composer, the classical composer, the composer who writes music and tries to reach perfection, he's also seeking always for some kind of new level of truth and beauty. He wants to express that. Okay, and that's very important to perceive and identify what is the placement of composers and classical composers in the in this, let's say, compositional scene that we have today. That's very important to understand in order to understand what, basically, if you want to say like that, what distinguishes a fake composer and a real composer, if he called himself really a classical music composer. And of course here it sounds like a little bit orthodox that you have some recipient that is the classical music and you are inside or outside of this. But I think you understand what I mean. Independent of any musical eclecticism, there is a kind of essence that we refer to composers who write music that is related to the historical tradition, no matter if in a conservative or avant-garde way. I was saying that the musical concepts, they are just, or not just, but yeah, they are not more than that. They are the ways to reach comprehensibility in some moment of time. And I suggest that you really care about that, because I think a lot of about watch what kind of videos should I do, etc. And I think there is a kind of unconscious scam, so to say, on the part of music teachers. All composers or teachers who teach music theory as a theory of composition. There is some kind of unconscious scan to be. To not say something more radical, but at least something unconscious about the fact that they teach with a naive over appreciation or overrating of some musical rules and musical concepts, as they were the very essence of the music. And of course you teach everyone the relation between tonic and dominant, for example, as a way to step inside the music and to understand music. And of course I get it. And and I do that, and I teach that also. But I didn't do official research on that. But the majority of material online for composers overrate the function and the status of some music theoretical concepts, patterns, materials, etc. And that's in fact a complex problem, because already in music theoretical textbooks the authors repeat this naivety, so to say, with exception of very top composers that were also music theorists, and that's also a gift that we have. So, for example, Schoenberg, Hindemith, Janacek. Also, Schoenberg teaches you very basic stuff on his books, but if you perceive exactly what is behind what he wants to say, is always the question of the musical logic and musical comprehensibility. Okay, that was a main theme for Schoenberg, and even if he was not talking about this the whole time on the treatise of harmony, okay, that was the underlying reason behind this methodical structure that can be maybe a little bit annoying for some people regarding the treatise of harmony, for example. Because what he wants there is to let you understand how musical concepts are the conditions of musical comprehensibility, how music theoretical concepts are the condition for compositional comprehensibility, and that every music theoretical concept or pattern or idiomatic expression of some style of the past was beautiful because it was comprehensible. And it was comprehensible because it related the music of the present at that moment to the future and to the past. And that is the way that some musical event is more or less comprehensible. Of course, comprehensibility is not the only factor here of beauty, because you need some message, something new. But the main structure behind many compositions of the past was given as such a structure because, first of all, it was the condition for comprehensibility. And now, what is my conclusion that I take from this? Because the music was new, then it was also needed some element of comprehensibility, and that was given by the rules. And of course, also that's the same with the language. You can always say something new, something unseen before, and you have the grammatical rules to guarantee that what is new is related to what is already done. In the case of language, the grammatic doesn't change. But in the case of music, the grammatic, if you understand musical grammatic as such rules that we learn to relate chords to each other, etc., those rules change, okay? in the case of music, that's not the absolutely the final grammatical structure. The grammatical structure of music is something more strange and mysterious, even if that is still related to our language as a spoken language. Okay, of course that's also language and understanding and different kinds of language. So the composers, they used such rules, chords, and patterns because it was the only way, and you should highlight this, it was the only way to guarantee some comprehensibility. And the more they go to something new, the more you can see some kind of proportion between, 30% broken rules and 70% used rules, like in any other given composer of that time. That's what make the language and the style. And the very important conclusion from this is that actually what you need as composer is to guarantee the conditions of comprehensibility of your music. And if you compose music today, of course, you need to get actualized about the conditions of comprehensibility of the music of today. And if you use all these rules that were given 200 years ago, and you overestimate this, it can sound a kind of funny, because some rules and patterns were used by Beethoven or Mozart because they were the end level of sophistication on the way to manage comprehensibility and originality. And if you just copy and paste that today, and you think because of this you are reaching something, then you are overestimating some a language, okay? And you are not understanding that there's a music theoretical concepts and patterns. They were already overused, and your task as a composer is not to guarantee comprehensibility, first of all, but to care about what you have to say. And if you care about what you have to say as a composer, about your aesthetical message, then you will appreciate and recognize the real functions of old and more recent conditions of comprehensibility that were set into rules, into patterns, into commonplace, that again they should be used, but they should not have overestimated in their function. If you want to if you want to see yourself as a classical composer, that means someone who search for a more fine level of musical beauty and musical expression. If your aim is to reach a more atemporal level of musical expression. So if you have Mozart or Bach or Beethoven, for instance, they were really caring about the musical message that was new. And it was new because the time in which you live is already new. That's a given. You don't need to care so much to be original. The time in which you live and your personality, it's already original. So you don't need to have any stress about that. It's everything about expression and to reach the level of idiomatic maturity. And you just reach, and that's also a qualification of any respectable composer, this idiomatic maturity, and you just reach this level of artistry if you care about what you say and you understand that the musical concepts, they are there as just as conditions for musical comprehensibility. And this end is also very important, principally, that the conditions of comprehensibility, they change with the time. They in the sense that you have new conditions of musical comprehensibility. And second, that we absorb the language, the musical language of the past, so that the more you hear it, so the more easy understandable it is. So of course, if you hear even Schoenberg today, if you hear Schoenberg and you relate it to expressionist movies, black and white movies, silent movies or Fritz Lang or whatever, you have some condition of comprehensibility that's far more given, so to say, and clear and established than what you had at the beginning when you first heard this music, or when the first time that Schoenberg played his music at all for the public, and the public had absolutely no context in which to recognize this new experience. So it's very important to consider that the conditions of musical comprehensibility, they are also changing, and what is true about that is that, of course, the old rules and old ways of organizing the compositional material that you have in your hand, they are not something like something that can spoil in the sense that they are dead, absolutely dead. They can always reborn, but it's also true that they do not live forever as a infinite fresh thing. So for example, the sonata form, the tonal classical style, is not something that lives forever in the sense that you will always refresh and recompose exactly in the same way, with the same freshness, with the same feeling of originality or whatever. No, because an important part of the sonata form in the tonal and very classicist sense, like Mozart Haydn, yeah, a very important part of this was given by the new condition of comprehensibility that was taking place, the new way of compromising and bringing together comprehensibility and something new. Okay, so in the sonata form, you can also relate many things to old musical forms. And what is true about that is that if an old musical pattern or rule, if it's true that you can reappropriate if it's true that you can reappropriate this old usage and old idiom, it's necessary also true that this old rule and old pattern died in some sense. That's why these old things and old ways of consider music and these old ways of compose, okay, as conditions of musical understanding, they died in some point of the time, in the sense that they are already obvious. They are already they are not part of some musical compromise between new and old, between understandable and between and what is not understandable but is interesting, what is new. Okay, this is true. Poles are not there anymore. If you just use it and you overrate it, you have a musical piece that is 100% musical comprehensibility as something obvious and absolutely given with no surprise. And what I say here is not against old forms or old rules and old styles, okay? Because I myself did things in this way. But the awareness of this is the key here. That means that the more you overuse, so to say, some given patterns of comprehensibility in a musical composition, so the more you need to bring something new and to have a musical argument. And what I mean by that is the message, the expression, the melody, the inspiration that you have to carry within this music is your musical argument that can compensate the overused part of your language with something new. Okay? That means in this case, alone the inspiration of some melody and the intensity of some musical part or some context or some I don't know, whatever, you can bring something new to the table, even if the rules that you are using in the sense of harmony, counterpoint, etc., are already overused and over understood, so to say. So it's still possible that you bring something new. And the key here is that you have a balance And that means the more obvious it is in some aspects, the more obvious patterns and rules, so to say, you use, so the more also you are allowed to, and you should, so the more you should bring something new and somehow incomprehensible to the table. And that's the key here. So every musical rule and musical pattern that you have, I don't know, from Palestrina or even before, it was such and such a rule and pattern, first of all because a musical condition of comprehensibility. Okay, and you can explain many things by that. And this musical comprehensibility that was given in some point was not an end in itself, but it was the condition for the composer, as a classical composer, express something new. And this something new was not originality for the sake of originality, but it was the natural, and it is the natural task of the artist as someone who lives in his present and wants to push his present at the level of atemporality and historical atemporality, so to say, and that's what means that is what fine art means. Okay, so I hope I expressed this idea more or less clearly, absolutely clear. That is not because that's really my thinking. Okay, that's not an overused and repeated YouTube content for you click. I don't know to understand that that's not something for I keep you as an ignorant composer. That's the truth, and that's some key concept for you relate your compositional aspirations as a classical music composer to what is the music today, and to the fact that the music today is more than classical music. You should not blame that on me, but that's the reality. I would also be maybe very happy if I were if it were like 100, 200 years ago, here with Wagner, opera, Richard Strauss, and you should not do any reflection or reasoning about what kind of music you should do, because it was somehow given what is the kind of music that you should do. And today we don't have it, okay? And this question was important for me for a long time. What is the music that I will do? And you can see on my all my music on YouTube, you can see that also I am someone who is kind of searching for different styles, so to say, different ways of doing music, and at the same time someone who is also is stressed by this question between comprehensibility, the extension of your musical range in the sense of how do you get people by emotions principally, and on the other hand, how you respect the fact that the musical history cannot stop in one style without that you pay the price for this. And my talk here is for you understand this, what is the price you should pay. I don't mean something bad, understand? But what is the condition that you should recognize in order to use more and more old and overused musical patterns? And that's my answer. As I said, the more you use overused conditions of comprehensibility, so the more you should be aware of what is the new thing that you are expressing, so that you need such conditions of comprehensibility. Because in other way, you are just saying something that was already said, and that sounds like you just want to show that you can say it, but to show that you can say it is in fact not the point of art. The point of art is that you say something new, relevant, that pushes the present of your time into a condition of a temporality and some human relevance. If you don't reach historical relevance, and not everyone should, but that you reach the level of human relevance. And for you reach this level, you should not neglect what is in fact the new status and new conditions of comprehensibility that are taking place in the time that you live. Okay, otherwise you are composing for philologists, or I mean, you know what is a philologist, yeah? You're composing for philologists, for musicologists, or you are composing for people who don't even understand what was already understood by the humanity, okay? And you should not also overestimate the difference between understand and appreciate Mozart, and to recognize that a lot of things couldn't be said by Mozart, and we, for example, Mozart, and we have to say it. That is our duty as artists and as expressive beings that search for more accurate and fine and adequate levels of expression. Okay? So that's all.